Watch the ride.
Hey everybody, hope you're all doing alright out there. So recently I made a video talking about proposed changes to the CBT, and because of that, in the comments I had people saying that people with motorcycle licenses just wanted to make it harder for everyone so they couldn't get a bike license, which was completely missing the point. And I explained what my point was in that video called Spicy Take, making the CBT harder, where I explained why I agreed with making it more stringent, or at least making sure people follow the actual CBT to the way it's supposed to be done. In the comments of that video, I had some people say that their CBT took from 8 AM till 7 PM because they just spent the whole day doing it. That's great. As much training as you can possibly get in a day, they're getting the money's worth. Some other people said, oh, it took me like 45 minutes. And I was like, that's awful. That's exactly what we're trying to stop. And it was in those comments that this came up, and I thought, hey, I'll talk about that, because I've had quite a few people who've made some presumptions about my sort of views on things and thinks I just want to ban everything, and I don't at all. I've been trying for years to make it easier for people to get into biking in every way I can, by making videos to train you and remove the mystification of all of it. You still have to go and do the test, but hopefully it should be easier. So I've tried. And that just shows they're completely ignorant to everything that I've done over the past 10 years. But they may think that I would be all for banning people from doing commercial work on CBTs, because at the end of the day, the CBT is a training ticket. It's not even a license. It's there so you can actually train to do your full motorcycle license. The only reason it exists is because you can't, like with a car, jump in your mum's car and she sits in the passenger seat. So that's kind of why it's there. I also thought that part of it was to help people who are unemployed to get into employment, because it meant it was a really cheap form of transport, but apparently that isn't true. Some people say that's not true. So fine, okay, we'll forget that line, but the point is, it's not a full license, so it isn't unreasonable to wonder how is it someone could do something commercially on that. The reality is they just have to pay the insurance, and it's completely fine to do it on a CBT. But of course it comes down to the skill of the rider. Now, as I say, some people have said, well, how is that even allowed? And do you think that that should be allowed? Well, this is my opinion on it. I do agree it would be better if they had to have a minimum of an A1 license. Wait, hear me out. I agree with the end point, but maybe you'll see. So I agree that it probably would be a good idea. You would see a lot less unskilled riders driving around all of the time. And I can also see a legal argument, which is, say that you were using a piece of equipment at work and it required 3 levels of training, and you'd only got the base level of training, and then you used that piece of equipment and got hurt. Because you were asked to use it without 3 levels of training, you can now sue the company because you were asked to do something you weren't trained to do, and it was their responsibility, their due diligence to make sure that you did. So I could understand how, these companies are employing people to do a professional job, but they're not making sure they've got adequate training necessarily, because we can't be sure how well the CBT was done, to make sure that they're actually safe to do the job. And it would seem like many of them are not, because, as I said, some of the worst I've ever seen have been around Portsmouth. I'm told London's 10 times worse. They've either got a phone in their hand or a cup of coffee. And I actually asked on my Discord, have you ever seen anyone driving around, like a delivery driver, with a cup of coffee in their hand? And they're all like, yeah, that's pretty normal. And I'm like, what? So, as I say, I do think that it would be a good thing if that were a reality. However, I do not believe achieving that by banning people who are on a CBT from doing commercial work is the solution. I mean, obviously, if you make people do the A1 as a minimum, you're now going to reduce the amount of people willing to do that, so you're going to have less people available to be drivers. That means they can command more money, really, unless they're paid on minimum wage, in which case that sucks. But that also highlights the second thing, which is that these people probably don't want to do this for a career. They're probably doing it, get a CBT, do some delivery work, get some money together, maybe do your full license, then maybe go off and work further afield or something like that. I don't feel like these jobs are there for people who want to do it as a career. So making them have all these qualifications, an A1 to do so, is a little bit silly. And ultimately, surely it will just end up meaning that your delivery costs when you want to order food in or whatever is going to be a lot more. So it's just going to cost everyone more, and there's less jobs, and it's not good for anyone. So in this scenario, not having so much governmental control is a good thing. And this is something people might not realise. I don't particularly like governmental controls. You know, when I said about banning disposable vapes, people were like, oh yeah, just ban everything, ban everything. I specifically made a point in the description and in that video to say I'm not about banning things. I actually think there's many things that are banned that shouldn't be banned. There should be less control by the government and the people. But that's a whole story of its own, but I'm going to shorten it to this. F the police, well, who's stopping you from killing me? It's a public enemy line, and it says everything you need to know about that. You know, if you don't have the rules in place, what makes you think people are going to be reasonable? They're not. You know, people are totally unreasonable about things when it is illegal. So if you made it a choice, well, most people are assholes, it seems, nowadays. Not you guys necessarily, but you might be, I don't know. You know what I mean? You know, there has to be a line somewhere, and just because you have an opinion in one direction doesn't mean you have an opinion in another direction. That's what I'm saying. I agree with banning disposable vapes because I can't see an alternative solution. I don't agree with making CBT riders not be able to do commercial work without an A1 as a minimum, because I don't think that's a viable solution. And I don't think the problem is the fact that they need to do an A1. I think the problem is they need to do a CBT that's actually decent, which is the entire point of what we were saying about the proposed changes and how I thought it was a good idea to get the theory on there and make sure that the CBT is done more rigorously, so that you don't have to do an A1 to be able to do commercial work and stuff like that. That's the whole point of where I'm getting here. You know, with YouTube, you are damned if you do and you are damned if you don't, because people don't know you, for a start. So, I mean, if you've watched me for a long time, you know me as a person, you probably know what a lot of my views are going to be, because they tend to be down a very logical, sensible, reasonable line, in my opinion. I hope. I try and be I'm not about strictness, but I'm not about full leniency, because people take the piss. But at the same time, we shouldn't be, you know, really hampering everyone just because of the actions of a few people. Accountability is a thing that should be, well, people should be more accountable, you know. You know, it's like in the UK, you have people that cause absolute nuisances in your area. There could be shoplifting from every shop every day, could be violent, could be all sorts of things. And I'm actually referring to things that have happened around here. These people have been reported to the police, they've been arrested, they've been released, arrested, released, and they're always here because the police never do anything to actually solve their problem. And their problem, both of them actually, is not that they're bad people, it's they've got mental illnesses and they need help. We're way off the issue at this point on a major tangent, so let's go back. The core issue. Do I think that, you know, delivery riders should have more than a CBT? No, but I think they should have more than the CBT they currently have. I wish that all new riders had to do a theory and they had to do a CBT properly just to prove that they can do it. I mean, there was another comment that came up literally 20 minutes before I left the house. So dude, I know I gave you a bit of an honest answer. If you see this, I wish you the best of luck, but I'm going to tell you about this thing, okay, because it's about looking at things from a certain perspective. Someone commented saying, I can't wait for the auto upgrade for the A2 to come in if they do that, in the sense if you do training, not a test, not the old school way of it automatically upgrading. Because they've got their A2, passed their Mod 2, no problem first time, but since then they've tried to upgrade the licence and failed the Mod 2 twice, and they're saying about how, you know, how they're now stuck in this loophole of money. And I said, I'm afraid it's not a loophole of money, it's basically a skill issue. Because if you previously have been able to pass that test, unless the school is being particularly harsh or your nerves are getting the better of you, you should be able to pass that test again. If you can't, it's like you're saying, I want the rules to change because I'm not good enough to pass the test. Now, as I've said, riding a bike and passing that test are two very, very different things. The Mod 2 is about basically being able to use the road, and there's a few things in, I mean, I don't get how you fail your Mod 2 unless you do something that is against the rules of what you're supposed to be doing. I mean, you know, like, you know the whole section where you get lost, where you're told to follow the signs, right? Even if you get lost, even if you end up, if they say go to Asda down the road and you end up in a completely different place in the wrong direction, as long as every single manoeuvre you made was safe, you will pass. So all you need to do to pass a Mod 1 is basically, Mod 2, is basically imagine that the police are behind you and just ride properly and do all of the things you're supposed to do, your observations and all of that stuff. You also need to exaggerate your observations because the instructor's not going to see that necessarily. No, if you look at your mirror like that, that's not as obvious as like doing a full-on like look across, shoulder check and all that stuff, because you're supposed to be doing it. I do mirror checks about every 5 seconds with my eyes. I don't always move my head. Now, one of the reasons I can do that on this bike is because these mirrors work fantastically. I know what's behind me. I can see clearly, like a crossed over view from two sides. So the advice I gave to this guy was, look, should you really be trying to go and get a faster bike on an A licence if you're having problems passing the A2? I believe the better thing to do would be to go and get a day's training and then do the A2 directly after it. Because then you'll be up to standard because you've been trained a bit more. They'll find all the problems you've got and then you'll just sail through the A2 and it'll be done. And that's it, your licence is done forever. But if you're going to keep blaming the fact that, if you're going to just say the problem is I keep paying for it, well, it's just stop doing it if you're not capable of passing it. And this is major nerves, in which case, I feel for you, but there are ways to get around that. I've got videos to help you with that. It's just, you just got to be confident in what you're doing. Or if the school is being particularly harsh, well then what I suggest you do is find a different school. Because the thing is, oh god, I'm going to have to go on another tangent now because there's so many things I'm going to have to pick up on this. Someone recently said about how training schools will fail you because it's how they make money. No, if a training school kept failing people, they wouldn't get customers coming through the door because word would get around that they're being overly stringent. In the same way that an MOT tester has a discretion with an exhaust noise, I've heard of MOT testers putting an advisory on a stock exhaust on a Honda, which is like ridiculous. And you know, there's some people with MOTs who are a little bit more relaxed and a bit more like, no, that's all right. Now I'm not talking about people faking MOTs there. I mean, maybe they're like, it's quite a loud exhaust, but it's not the end of the world. If the schools wanted to make money, they wouldn't fail you, they would pass you, because then the word gets round that if you go to this place, you're going to pass no problems, because they're not that, they just pass you and get you through. They'll just take you on an hour on the road and you'd be done, basically. Like that sort of thing, that will get people through the door. So I don't think they're failing you to try and make money. I think the honest answer of it is you need to do a bit more training and maybe get your nerves in check and do it that way. And that is very reminiscent of the video I did a while ago talking about CBTs and saying if you keep failing your CBT, maybe the problem's you. Because as I said, if a school's failing you, it's because you're not up to standard. It's not because they want to make money out of you. They would have just passed you and told you to sod off. I don't know why I came in the golf club. I thought maybe you want to see the golf club. This is the golf club. The problem is simply this: when your emotions start getting involved in stuff, you stop looking at things logically. You don't look at, maybe I need to get better at this. You go, oh, it must be them. And you're never ever going to solve that problem if you just keep blaming everyone else. It's exactly the same as people who complain about things and you say, okay, you're not happy about this situation in your life. What are you doing actively to change that situation? And they'll say, well, nothing. I'm like, well, then why are you complaining about it? Do something to change it. Even if it's one tiny step, it's a step on the road to change. And if you're not taking that step, you're not getting anywhere. It's like walking around the world. It's a massive task, but it starts with one step. And then there's just another step, and another step, and another step. And before you know it, not before you know it, your legs are killing you and you're only halfway to Hull. But you know what I'm trying to say here? If you want to walk around the world, it takes lots and lots of small steps. I'm trying to be realistic and encourage you in a way that's actually going to work. I'm not going to be one of those people that's going to vacuously just say, everything's okay, it's not you, it's them, and blah, 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 blah. No, because it doesn't help anyone. You just be honest with them. It's the same reason I don't make content that's too flashy and bullshitty. I'm trying to be real with people. I'm trying to make you realise I'm not a YouTuber. I'm not someone who's trying to do whatever I can get to get a Raid Shadow Legends advert or some bollocks like that. I try and make good content that's actually really helpful for people and hope that the people who benefit from that by maybe saving money in training or learning to fix their bikes support it through Patreon and things like that. This is my point. I really get annoyed when people accuse me of, say, like with the bike thing, or you're gatekeeping bikes, you're trying to make it harder for people to get on a bike. Oh yes, because that's why I spent 10 years making it easier. God damn it. There's a lot there. Thank you for watching. If you like the video, leave your thoughts in the comments, as always. If you agree with me or disagree with me, but just know I'm always coming from a position of trying to help people and be honest. If you want to help support this channel, as I say, you can do that through Patreon, you can do it through PayPal as a one-off thing, you can buy a t-shirt. There are lots of ways to support the channel, including just watching the videos, hitting the like button, turn the notification bell on, any of that stuff. But otherwise, I wish you the best of luck on your journey to two wheels, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.